We're going to talk about healthy eating. I have to say that is not something that I knew anything whatsoever about when I was growing up. I grew up in Fargo, North Dakota. Anybody been there? Seen the movie? That's my mom in that movie. Anyhow, my family raised cattle. My grandfather, my great-grandfather, as far back as I could trace, everybody raised cattle. Except for my dad hated the cattle business, and he decided to get out of it. And so he then went to medical school, and he spent his life treating diabetes in Fargo. And yet we still ate like we were in the cattle business, which means that every day of my life it was roast beef, baked potatoes, and corn, except for special occasions when it was roast beef, baked potatoes, and peas. And that is everything I knew about nutrition, I have to say. And you know what? When you talk to other people about what is good nutrition, they are confused too. Nowadays, a lot of people are trying to, say, avoid carbohydrate. You know what I'm talking about. If you want to lose weight, don't eat bread, don't eat potatoes, don't eat cookies, don't eat cakes, don't eat beans, don't eat pasta, don't eat rice. But if you think about that for a second, if you look at Japan, they are the skinniest, longest-lived, healthiest people on the planet historically. And what is the dietary staple of Japan? You see huge amounts of rice in the Japanese plate. And if you look at diabetes, in adults over the age of 40, before 1980, diabetes was really uncommon. 1 to 5% of the population, very rare. Anybody know what happened in Japan right around 1980? Culturally, anybody know? Yeah, this stuff started to come in. Fast food chains came in. This is not traditional Japanese food, but it became very popular. William Castelli at the Framingham Heart Study always said, when you see the golden arches, you could be on the road to the pearly gates. That's been true in Japan. The fat content of the Japanese diet has gradually risen. Not as bad as ours, but it's gone up. And the carbohydrate content has gone down. In other words, they're eating less and less rice year by year by year. And if before 1980, diabetes was 1 to 5%, by 1990, it was 11 to 12%. This shows us two things. Number one, rice does not cause diabetes. If it did, that would have been the big issue before. The second thing it shows us is that diabetes is not primarily a genetic disease. Now, that might surprise you because you know that there are families where you see diabetes in the grandparents and in the parents and then ultimately in the kids. But did genes change between 1980 and 1990? No. What changed was the environment. So let's take a lesson from the United States. This is going to be on the test. 1909, the Department of Agriculture started tracking what Americans eat. And we did not have a rice-based diet. We had a pretty meaty diet. I don't know how you grew up, but a lot of Americans, it wasn't a meal if meat wasn't at the center of the plate. You know what I'm talking about. So how much did we eat? In 1909, the average American ate 123.9 pounds of meat in that year. And in the post-World War II period, it started to rise quite precipitously and hit an all-time high in 2004 at 201.5 pounds of meat. If you do the math, that's a rise of more than 75 pounds of meat every person every year, extra meat. And anybody know what the main increase was? Was it beef that was going up so much, or was it pork that was going up, or what was it? Chicken. Americans eat 1 million chickens per hour now. It's about 9 billion. Yes, that's right. 1 million chickens per hour are consumed in America, about 9 billion per year. Let me say a special word of condemnation for cheese. Back a century ago, we were not a cheese-eating country. That's a European kind of thing. In a year, we couldn't get through 4 pounds of cheese. But what happened? Fast food chains in the 1960s, there wasn't a bun you couldn't slide a little cheese under. And then pizza, which was not really our thing until maybe the 70s or 80s and after that. We all know that pizza is a delivery vehicle for cheese. And would that matter? Well, cheese is 70% fat, 70. 70% of the calories in cheese are nothing but fat, especially saturated fat. Are you familiar with that? Yes. Is that a familiar term? Bad fat. the fat that's like in bacon grease. 70% of the fat of the calories in cheese are fat, mostly saturated fat. If it were any worse, it would be Vaseline. It's very high in sodium and very high in cholesterol as well. And yet we're eating it like there's no tomorrow. So if you do the math, we are eating almost 30 pounds more cheese. Every person, every year. Now, if you look at the diabetes map, this is 20 years ago. There's Fargo, where I grew up, and less than 4% of the population had diabetes at that time. Here's Louisiana and Mississippi, more than 6%. So as our diet was getting meatier and cheesier, here's 95, 96, 97, 98, 99, 2000, 2001, 2002, 2003, 2004, 2005. Now, in 2006, I'm going to change the colors because I want to look at counties. But look at the map. As the diet is changing, diabetes is roaring in. In other words, our genes are not changing. A meaty, cheesy diet is escorting diabetes into our population. How can that be? Well, hold that thought. We're going to come back to that in just a second. Okay, so who does better? Researchers have looked at Seventh-day Adventists quite a lot. And when I got involved in research, I couldn't figure out why researchers are always studying Seventh-day Adventists. What for? Well, I soon found out that Adventists by church teachings are supposed to avoid tobacco, avoid alcohol, avoid caffeine, and not eat meat. And almost all Adventists are really good at the first three. They're not smoking, they're not drinking, they're avoiding caffeine, but some of them eat meat, some of them don't. So it sets up a natural experiment. 2009, the American Diabetes Association published these data. They've got almost 61,000 people, non-smokers, health-conscious people, but some of them eat meat, some of them eat only a little meat, some of them don't eat meat at all, and we're looking at BMI. What's BMI? Body mass index. Okay, to be healthy, it's below? 25, good. Okay, so here's non-vegetarians, average meat eaters, okay? And they are not below 25, they're 28.8. Semi-vegetarians, that's meat less than once a week. A little bit skinnier. Pesco vegetarians, what's that? Okay, so no meat except fish. Not slim, but slimmer. Lacto-ovo. Lacto is milk, ovo is eggs. Okay, so they're not eating any meat, but they are having eggs and milk, and they're a little thinner. Who's this group? Now, a vegan is not a person from the planet Vegas. Vegan diet means no animal products at all, and that happened to be the only group that was smack in the middle of the healthy BMI range. You with me? You with me? Okay, so this is not why the American Diabetes Association published these data. They published it because of diabetes. The meat eaters had a lot of it. The vegans had almost none. And the more the animal products come into your diet, the more trouble you're in. So I get up in the morning, tomorrow morning, make some oatmeal, slice some strawberries, a little cinnamon on top. That's my breakfast. For lunch, bean burrito. For dinner, spaghetti with the marinara sauce. That happened to be a vegan day, right? No animal products. So I am going to be in the skinny group and the low diabetes risk group. The next day I say, you know, a little cheese would have been good on that burrito. A glass of milk, maybe an egg for breakfast. Uh-oh, now I'm in that group and I'm in that group. So my risk of higher weight and higher diabetes prevalence goes up. The next day I think, fish. Isn't that healthy? I'll have a little salmon. Uh-oh, bingo, now I'm in that group, and I'm in that group. Fish eaters have a lot more diabetes than the people who don't eat fish. So you get the idea. If I'm eating now meat or meat every day, I'm in the highest BMI group, the highest risk for diabetes. So my research team up on Wisconsin Avenue in DC thought that was intriguing. So we did a weight loss study where we brought in a group of people who had never tried a vegan diet before, and our goal was to see what would happen if they began this seemingly very healthy diet. So we brought in 64 women. Everybody was overweight, postmenopausal. They had done Atkins. They had done South Beach. They had done Nutrisystem and Jenny Craig and everything else, and they felt completely stuck. So we gave them two rules. The first rule, no animal products. No meat, no milk, no eggs. Second rule, minimize oils. So for all those people who are making their pasta and taking their oil, going glug, 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 oil, we were saying, no, we're going to keep oils to a minimum. Why? Because all fats, no matter where they're from, anybody know how many calories they have in a gram? A gram of fat has how many calories? 9. Do we all agree on that? A gram of carbohydrate has 4. So if we're going to lose weight, let's say no animal products, keep oils low. Those were the only rules. How many calories were they allowed to eat? As many as they wanted. How many portions? We didn't care. How many carbohydrate grams? We weren't counting. They could eat all the carbs, all the calories, all the portions they wanted. 2 rules, no animal products, minimize oils. No exercise. Or no changes in your exercise routine. We're zeroing in on diet. We're trying to isolate that, okay? So what we asked them to do was to eat from the power plate. Fruits, grains, vegetables, legumes. What are legumes? Okay, beans, peas, lentils, things that grow in a pod. Okay, peanuts also. So a typical day's meals, blueberry pancakes with butter? No, why not? Because that's an animal product. That's out. Oatmeal with cinnamon and raisins and heavy cream? No, why not? Because that's a dairy. Okay, good. Dairy product. Meat chili? No. Chicken? No. Okay. But a vegetable chili, bean chili, very simple. You could have a banana, or 6 bananas, or 25 bananas. We didn't care. We weren't counting. When my linguine comes, if it's covered with the Alfredo sauce, no good. But if it's covered with artichoke hearts and seared oyster mushrooms and chunky tomatoes and all the spices you could ever want, fine, no problem. So the women described this as the easiest diet they had ever been on, because nobody told them that they had to feel guilty about carbs or calories or anything like that, although they did have to learn some new things. There's no animal products in it, okay? So at 14 weeks, the average person had lost 13 pounds, 2 inches in their waist, and their insulin sensitivity improved, which is something we test with glucose tolerance testing, okay? So how does this work? I just said they could eat all the calories they want. They could eat all the carbs, all the portions, whatever, all they want. Why are they losing weight? Well, the first is a real no-brainer, fiber. Do grains have fiber? Do beans have fiber? Of course. All of these foods have fiber. Every mouthful that you take has fiber in it. And the reason we care, fiber has no calories. Effectively, no calories. And yet it fills you up. It even holds a little water in your stomach. And after your meal, you go, oh, did I overdo it? And you push away from the table. When I measure, you've actually eaten maybe 200 calories a day less than before, just because the fiber content of your diet is so high. So if you forced yourself to eat as many calories as you were before, you're not going to lose any weight. But the reason these people on the vegan diet lost weight is because high fiber foods fill you up, you push away, your appetite is satisfied, you lose weight, okay? Simple. Oh, wait a minute. There's a second reason. The after meal burn. You come into my laboratory, lie down on the table, and over your head and your shoulders, I put a clear plastic canopy. And you're lying there, and I'm sampling the oxygen. You're taking in oxygen, you're breathing out carbon dioxide. And I can tell with some pretty simple arithmetic how fast your metabolism is. Metabolism? Calorie burning speed? Okay. Now, our participants said, my metabolism is slow. When I was 14, I could eat anything. Now, I just look at food, I gain weight, I'm sure my metabolism is slow. Well, I say, let's measure. And they come in, and you know what? Their metabolism is slow. They're not burning a lot of calories, okay? So they're lying on the table. Then I give them breakfast. And after breakfast, you get what is called the thermic effect of food, or just call it the after meal burn. Your calorie burning speed ramps up like that, and it stays high for about 3 hours. You're burning calories faster, okay? You're absorbing the nutrients, it's getting in the cells, and you're giving off a little bit of body heat, okay? So go on the vegan diet. Come back 14 weeks later, lie down on the table, I put the canopy there, I'm measuring, you got a slow metabolism. Well, wait a minute. But then your after-meal calorie burn is about 16% higher. Now, that's not a lot, just a little bit. But you get it after breakfast for 3 hours. You get it after lunch for 3 hours. You get it after dinner for 3 hours. You're burning calories just a little bit faster. So why are vegans skinny? A, they are satisfied sooner because of fiber. B, they've just got a little metabolic edge that their meat-eating friends do not have. Okay? So the NIH was impressed by that, and they said, okay, test this for people with diabetes, because this could be good for them. So this is our team. What we did was now we added something. It was a low-fat diet, low glycemic index. What's the glycemic index? Anybody know? Glycemic index, invented in 1981 by David Jenkins, University of Toronto. And if I eat white bread, very simple. If I eat white bread, my blood sugar rises, right? You with me? If I eat rye bread, a little bit more slowly. If I eat pumpernickel bread, my blood sugar will rise, but really not very fast at all. If I eat pure sugar, what's going to happen to my blood sugar? What's going to happen to my blood sugar if I eat pure sugar? Not a trick question. It's going to go up, right? If I eat beans, well, it'll go up, but much more gently. So anything that spikes my blood sugar, that's high GI, high glycemic index. Things that are gentle on my blood sugar are low GI. So this is not a low-carb diet at all. But they're eating healthy, low glycemic index starches. Okay? So vegan, low-fat, low GI. And for a control group, we use the ADA guidelines, American Diabetes Association, which says you're heavy, you got to count calories. And the way this is still done is you say, okay, you take 2,000 calories a day. So I'm going to give you a menu with 1,500. And you'll say, okay, we're going to starve the weight off, right? And I say, yes. How long do I have to do this? Until you reach your goal weight, which happens to be forever. For almost everyone. They never reach their goal weight. And so the dietitian seriously looks at you and says, you are going to go to bed hungry every night for the rest of your life. Now, I want to tell you something. When we do research studies, I try every diet that we prescribe. And I have tried this one. And by about Wednesday, you are ready to eat the sofa. And anyway, okay. But then the second thing is we say, you've got diabetes. Diabetes means high blood sugar. Sugar comes from carbohydrate. You familiar with this? You eat bread, it breaks down to carbohydrate. So we're going to limit how much carbohydrate you eat. And you might say, wait a minute, what about those people in Japan who are eating rice all day long? Well, we're not going to focus on them. I want you to limit your carbohydrate. That's ADA guidelines, okay? That's the traditional diabetes approach. Cut calories, limit carbohydrate. So it was a 22-week study, about 5 months. 1-year follow-up, 99 people. What we track is something called hemoglobin A1C. How many people have heard of A1C, hemoglobin A1C? Okay, so if I measure, if you're new to this, if I measure your blood glucose, your blood sugar, that's a good index of your glycemic control, but it bounces up and down and up and down and up and down and up and down hour by hour. Hemoglobin A1C is more stable, and it reflects your blood sugar control over the preceding 3 months. If you have diabetes, should be below 7. Now, our people were not below 7. No, sorry. The average person was around 8. Now, the ADA group, they had a nice drop of about 0.4. The vegan group had a drop of 1.2, 1.3. That is huge. That effect on their blood sugar control is bigger than any of the oral medications that we could have bought at the pharmacy at that time. It was an enormous drop. Let me show you what this means to individuals. This is Vance. Vance was a policeman, and he came in and he said, I want to tell you my story. We've had diabetes all up and down my family tree. My father was dead at age 30. To him, diabetes meant going blind, losing your foot, ending up on dialysis, premature death. He was 31 when he was diagnosed. He was in his late 30s when he came in to see us, and he was randomly assigned to the vegan group. And at first he was nervous. He said, what does this mean? How am I going to do it? We showed him how, And right away in the first week, he said, this is not hard. I know how to make chili, and he knew how to make these simple foods. He found it very easy. He lost 60 pounds over about a year's time. He stopped all of his diabetes medications, and his A1C was 9.5, which is terrible. It's supposed to be below 7. It dropped to 5.3, which is normal. That's what your A1C is if you don't have diabetes. To understand this, when I started medical school at the George Washington University, our diabetes class said, diabetes is a one-way street. It's a progressive disease. You probably learned this too. It never goes away. It doesn't get better. It gradually gets worse. Your blood sugar numbers are going to get worse. Your weight's going to go up. You're going to have higher and higher medication doses. You are going to end up on insulin, higher doses, and this disease does not go away. Here was a man sitting in front of his own personal physician on no medications with absolutely normal blood values. Diabetes, we're not allowed to tell you it's gone. Since that time, we've seen lots of people where their diabetes is gone. But we had never seen this before, okay? This is Nancy. Oh, by the way, when I asked his permission to tell you his story, he said, make sure you tell everybody that my erectile dysfunction went away too. Okay? All right, this is Nancy. Nancy lost about 40 pounds. She stopped her diabetes medications. Her A1C fell from 8.3, which is not good, to 6.8, which is good, although still in the diabetic range. She had a funny experience. She had rheumatoid arthritis. And one day she was at home cooking spaghetti, and she cracked open a jar of spaghetti sauce, and she suddenly just stopped. She had rheumatoid arthritis. And if any of you have arthritis or know somebody who has, you know that whoever makes those vacuum-packed jars, they are sadists. You cannot open them up. And she realized her joints didn't hurt anymore. When did that happen? Well, it was around the time she changed her diet. And we could talk about arthritis, that's a whole other topic, but just very quickly, rheumatoid arthritis is the common form that we see in which the joints are inflamed. If you could look inside the joints of a person with rheumatoid arthritis, the synovial membrane that lines that joint looks ugly. It is inflamed. What causes that? There are antibodies that are being formed in the body that cause it. It's an autoimmune disease. Everybody knows that. Autoimmune diseases are triggered by something. They're triggered by foreign proteins in many cases. The most common one is dairy protein. And how much dairy is there on a vegan diet? 0. So her arthritis goes away. Okay? Now, not everybody who has arthritis has that as their trigger. There are other food triggers also. And I wrote a book about this called Foods That Fight Pain 16 years ago because I was impressed that people who were taking fistfuls of medication, in some cases, could get off it and feel good and play tennis and shake somebody's hand and not be worried about their hands anymore. Okay? And now I'd like to talk to you about your car insurance. This is Geico. When I look out my office window, I see Geico's national headquarters. And I was talking in 2007 with their head of their health service. She said to me, Dr. Barnard, we have 2,500 people in this building. We are self-insured. Every time anyone one of them needs medicine, goes to see the doctor, ends up in the hospital, we pay for this. Wouldn't it be great if they were all doing your diet? And I said, well, show them how. So we did it as a study, as a test. We picked 2 Geico sites, this one in the DC area and another one in Fredericksburg, Virginia. And at both sites, anybody who was willing to be part of this study would get weighed. We'd track their A1C. We would track their cholesterol and their blood pressure. But at this facility, they got a program. The program was, once a week, a discussion group with cooking classes, how to do it vegan. The other thing they got was vegan food in the cafeteria. This was new for the cook. He hadn't, or the cafeteria manager, he had not done a lot of vegan things, and there were a few missteps at the beginning. What's wrong with this slide? Okay, anyway, so the people in Fredericksburg who got no program, they lost no weight. The people who got the program lost weight very nicely. This was July. This was Thanksgiving. They were losing weight right through the time when you're supposed to gain weight. This is Hillary and Bruce. Every week my instructors would come back to the office and they would say, those people at Geico are great. They're so motivated. They're so completely into it. Except for these two, Hillary and Bruce. They come every week and they just sit in the back and they don't pay any attention. They just talk and they distract everybody else. I don't know why they even come. Well, you can misjudge people. They did come every week and they did distract people and they did talk a lot. But what they were talking about was what they were going to pick up at the store on the way home, how they were going to convince her parents to go vegan with them, how they would do a vegan Thanksgiving for all their friends. And after a year, they sent me this picture. Hillary has lost 85 pounds. Bruce has lost 100 pounds. And they also discovered that when you set down all that heavy luggage, you got some energy. And these people never exercised at all, but once they felt really good and energetic, they took this picture the day they ran their first half marathon. Okay. All right. This is a man named Jean-Rémy. He's from Canada. He sent me these pictures because he weighed 320 pounds. And his doctor said, you have pre-diabetes and you know where this is going to go. And I wrote a book a few years ago about diabetes and based on our experience. And his wife gave it to him. And it did not say cut calories or limit carbohydrates. It said get the animal products out of your diet, keep the oils really low. And by the time he got to chapter 4, he had lost 160 pounds. And like Hillary and Bruce, he discovered something too. When you set down 160 pounds, you have got energy. And he found that he just was living for the first time in decades. All right, this is Jenna, younger, healthier, but still wanted to knock off some weight. How did she do it? Limiting carbohydrates? No. Not eating bread? No. Cutting calories? No. What she did is a plant-based diet, keeping the oils low, letting the fiber naturally satisfy her appetite, getting that burn that her friends could only envy, and she got her waistline back, got her confidence back, got her health back, which is what really matters. Okay? All right. So this is my most important slide. I want to show you the cause of type 2 diabetes. Because you may know people, or you yourself may be in this position in a few years, and your doctor will patiently explain to you a fiction, which is that diabetes is caused by eating sugar or bread. That is not true. We thought that back in the 40s and 50s. Okay. Glucose is in your bloodstream, right? Familiar with this? There's the glucose. Glucose is like gasoline for your car. Glucose powers your cells. This is a muscle cell. And the reason I'm showing you a muscle cell is that most of the glucose in your blood ends up in your muscles. Some goes to the brain, some goes to the liver, some goes to other body parts. Most of it goes to the muscles. And to get inside, see these purple channels? It's got to get through that, and it's having trouble. In order to succeed, you need something to get the glucose into the cell. That's a hormone. What's it called? What is it called? Insulin. It's called insulin. That's right. Insulin is like a key. And that key attaches to this lock. That's an insulin receptor. And so the insulin's made in the pancreas, gets in the bloodstream, arrives at the surface of the cell, just like a key in the lock, and once it attaches, you get this signaling process, and here comes the glucose. Goes right in. That's what's supposed to happen. If you have type 2 diabetes, you got this cell, you've got that glucose, you've got insulin, you've got receptors that attaches totally normally. No problem whatsoever. The problem is that once it attaches, this signaling is not working. Insulin signaling is defective. And here's why. I get home from work. I take out my key. I put it in my front door lock. It's not working. What's the matter? I pull the key out, and it's fine. And this is my house, so what's the matter? And the neighbor kids are hiding behind a tree, laughing at me. And I understand. While I was gone, they put chewing gum in my lock. And so what am I going to do? Crawl in and out the window? No. I'm going to clean out my lock. Nothing wrong with my key, but my lock is all gummed up. If you have type 2 diabetes, you don't have gum in your cells, but what you have is fat. chicken fat, beef fat, fish fat, fryer grease, olive oil, extra virgin olive oil, extra virgin olive oil. The fat you eat passes from your digestive tract into your bloodstream, into the cells, with surprisingly little conversion. And it builds up in there. Now, doctors hate words like fat. It has only one syllable. So we will call it intramyocellular lipid. But intra means inside, myo means muscle, cellular means cellular, lipid means fat. Intramyocellular lipid, fat inside the muscle cell. Fat inside your muscle cells interferes with insulin signaling. So, why did Vance's diabetes go away? Because his cells looked like that. He went on a vegan diet, and how much animal fat was there in his diet? How much? None, right? And if he keeps the oils really low, do you know what happens? That gum falls out of your lock. And the key starts to work again, like it did years before. And so diabetes can improve. But it will never improve if we only say your problem is bread, because the bread digests to glucose, and that's all up there. That's not where the diabetes is caused. It's caused in there. We didn't know any of this until about 10, 15 years ago we started to understand this. But I can put you in my MR spectroscopy machine, and I can show you that buildup of fat, and you could be 16 years old. But if you've got diabetes in your family tree, and you're eating a fatty, typical American diet, loaded with 70% fat cheese, chicken wings, salmon, all that fat is building up in your cells. I can measure it, and I can show you that you're insulin resistant. Very simple, very easy, okay? So the power plate, fruits, grains, vegetables, legumes, those should be the staples of the diet. That's a healthy diet. We, the Physicians Committee, sent this to the USDA in 2009. Said, the pyramid, nice shape. But nobody eats off a pyramid. It's too abstract. People eat off a plate. Give them a plate. And we didn't hear back. Maybe you're not surprised. Well, in 2010, we said, we will file a lawsuit to force the USDA to respond to us, and that we did. And they did respond to us the following year. In 2011, the U.S. government released something called My Plate. Have you seen it? There it is. Now, I'm not taking any credit, but you might notice some similarity between these two. Anybody detect a few things? There are two differences. One is, we called it legumes, they called it protein. For the first time in American history, there is no meat group. The U.S. government says, you don't have to eat meat. You can get protein from beans, tofu, tempeh, or it could be meat. They call it the protein group. They have a dairy group, but to their credit, dairy could include soy milk. So you can be a vegan, and you're following My Plate. Okay? This is not perfect, but we're making progress. Okay, so will I get complete nutrition? What if I'm Vance and my diabetes went away and I lost 60 pounds, I feel great, but all my friends are going to say, Vance, where do you get your protein? If any of you are vegetarians and scientists, are you sick of that question? Where do you get your protein? The simple answer is go out into any rural area and pick up or take a look at the biggest bull, the fastest stallion. Go to the zoo, look at the tallest giraffe, the biggest elephant, and ask them where do they get enough protein to build those massive bodies and all the muscles in them. These are all vegans. Okay? The biggest animals quite often are vegans. A pussycat is a carnivore. So protein is a complete non-issue. As long as you're eating any normal variety of foods, beans and vegetables and grains, you will get more than enough protein without even counting, even if you are a vigorous athlete. Calcium is an issue, but a really easy one. There is plenty of calcium in greens and beans. Green leafy vegetables and beans have plenty of highly absorbable calcium. A few exceptions. Spinach has a lot of calcium, but it's very selfish. It's not very well absorbed. But kale and collards and broccoli and Brussels sprouts, lots of highly absorbable calcium. And same thing with beans. So calcium, greens and beans. But vitamin B12, that's the one nutrient I do want you to take seriously. Also very easy. Vitamin B12 is made not by animals. and not by plants. Vitamin B12 is made by bacteria, and you need it for healthy nerves and healthy blood. And many people will speculate that prior to the advent of modern hygiene, there were bacteria in the soil, on the plants that we would pull out of the soil, on our fingers, in our mouths, whatever. That would give us the 2.4 micrograms that the body needs. That may be true, but if it was ever true, that is certainly not true today. You cannot assume that you're going to get any B12 from that source. Meat eaters will get some B12 because in a cow's intestinal tract, there are bacteria that make B12, and it will get into the meat. However, many people do not absorb that very well. If you don't make much stomach acid, if you're on metformin, if you're on an acid blocker, if you're over 50, you may not be absorbing it. And the problem is B12 deficiency leads to nerve symptoms and also anemia. If you're on a vegan diet and hopefully being hygienic, you need to supplement B12. But I would encourage everybody, no matter what your age is, to supplement B12 because a lot of people are old. So B12 is in every multiple vitamin you ever took, whether it's a 1 a day or a Centrum or Flintstones or any of them, they all have vitamin B12 and they all have more than enough. So it's a complete, well, it's an issue, but a really, really easy one, okay? The thing not to do, if you're a vegan and you're not supplementing because you say everything should be natural, well, you don't live in nature. You don't live in anything like nature. And so you may not be getting, you might be getting B12 from fortified foods, but don't trust it. I don't want you to not have a heart attack and be thin and not have diabetes, but then get B12 deficient. Don't do that. You're going to be a bad advertisement. So protein, non-issue. Calcium, greens and beans, B12, supplemented. Take your daily multiple vitamin or any source. You're going to be the healthiest person that you know. All right? So by now you might be saying, okay, I believe it. If I did that, I'd probably be healthier. I'd probably live longer. I probably won't gain weight as I get older. But I don't know how to do that. I don't want to do that. No, my friends won't call me up anymore. I'll have to live in the garage. I want to share with you how we introduce this to our research participants. We break it into 2 steps, and I have never seen anyone unable to do this. Step 1 is don't change your diet. Not yet. Not for the first week. We're just going to check out the possibilities. By check out the possibilities, I mean we're going to think through what can I eat for breakfast that happens to have no animal products? What could I eat for lunch? What could I have for dinner? How about snacks? So I take a piece of paper and I actually write breakfast, lunch, dinner, snack, and I send the patient home and I say, fill this out. And if you found a food you like, write it down. If you don't like it, cross it out, okay? So the whole idea is to just find things you like because I want you to like this. I don't want you to be hungry. I want you to be eating foods every single meal that taste really good to you. Because if you do that, you're going to succeed. All right? So for breakfast, oatmeal to me tastes like wallpaper paste, so I'm going to put some cinnamon and raisins or strawberries on it, and now it's kind of good. Or maybe this is the South. I could have grits instead. Blueberry pancakes with a little maple syrup. Okay. Bran flakes with almond milk. You get the idea. I'm just testing these things out. And if I haven't tried soy milk or rice milk or almond milk, you buy them, try them, and if you like them, keep them. Okay? Then you go on to lunch. Could I have a pizza without cheese? Could I do that? What could I put on instead? Extra sauce. I could put on all the veggies. Okay, some mushrooms and sauteed onions. All right, fine. In fact, if that sounds like sacrilege in this cheese-eating country, get on a plane and go to Rome and go to any pizzeria in that town. And you will see they have 2 or 3 pizzas that never have cheese on them. This whole idea of having cheese on everything, that's an Americanism. Okay? All right, so veggie pizza, chunky vegetable chili, bean burrito, veggie burgers, veggie hot dogs. If you like them, keep them. If you don't like them, set them aside. I'm just filling out my list. So I'm going out to a dinner. There's an Italian restaurant down the block. Will they make me a plant-based meal? Will they? Can I? Can I get a plant-based meal at a what can I get? All right, so a salad, maybe some lentil soup, minestrone, pasta e fagioli, and my angel hair pasta will be covered with artichoke hearts, mushrooms, tomato sauce, chunky tomatoes, all the spices that I could want. Mexican, could I do it Mexican style? What can I get? What can I get at a Mexican restaurant that would be vegan? Bean burrito? Okay. Veggie fajitas? Beans and rice? All right, that's pretty easy. Chinese, how about Chinese? Could I do it at a Chinese restaurant? Anybody know a Chinese restaurant near here? Okay, will they make me rice? Will they make me vegetables? Will they make me tofu? Okay, that was easy too. Extra points for Japanese, because not only do they have lots of really great plant-based options, but they also keep oils naturally very low in most of their dishes. Okay, I'm going to Subway. Will they work with me? They will. Okay, so I say skip the meat and cheese, but put on the lettuce and tomatoes and the olives and the cucumbers and the spinach and the onions and the little red wine vinegar. Toast it for me. They'll call it Veggie Delight. Taco Bell may not be the pinnacle of culinary art, but will they work with me? Okay, bean burrito, hold the cheese. Okay, so all I'm doing is I'm filling out my list. I got my breakfast, I got my lunches, I got some fast food things. I know when I go out to a fancy Italian meal, I'm covered everywhere. So step 2, now that I know what I really like, try it. 3 weeks, foods you like, 21 days. No animal products, keep oils low. At the end of that time, 2 things will have happened. Number 1, you're skinnier. Number 2, you got better energy. If you have diabetes, that is improving. Your blood sugar is coming down, your blood pressure is coming down, your cholesterol is coming down. If you've got bad indigestion, that is suddenly getting better. But the second thing, and you didn't think about this, but your tastes are starting to change. My tastes are changing. You're starting to like these foods. If you don't believe this, let me ask this group, how many of you ever switched from whole milk to skim milk or non-fat milk, low-fat milk? Can I see hands? How many of you ever made that switch? When you did, what was the low-fat milk like at the beginning? What was it like? It was kind of watery? Sort of blue? Doesn't look right? How many of you got used to the lower fat taste? Okay, did you ever go back and taste whole milk again? What was that like? Okay, it's too thick. Well, your whole life it was perfectly fine, and you didn't get away from whole milk because you didn't like the taste. You just wanted to be healthier. And when you go back, you realize your taste buds physically have adapted so they don't want that fatty stuff anymore. The first week on a vegan diet, it will seem light. You're going to say to yourself, I guess I have to acquire a taste for folk music now. Okay, all right, break out the tie-dye. All right, I'm vegan. The second week, it starts to seem normal. And you discover there are a lot of other people who are doing this. And when you go to a restaurant, you are like the 20th person that day who asked them, what's vegan here? And Bill Clinton's doing it, Al Gore's doing it, Ellen DeGeneres is doing it, Serena Williams is doing it, and her sister. I mean, everybody's doing this, okay? After 3 weeks, if you go back and have a double bacon cheeseburger, you discover that you don't really crave those foods anymore. You just passed them. And you found things that you like a whole lot better. If you want, there are transition foods. Instead of Jimmy Dean, you can have Gimme Lean. There are vegan substitutes for sausage and for bacon and all kinds of stuff. Totally optional. Okay. If you want a free online program to guide you, it's called the Kickstart. It's at pcrm.org. You just visit that website, pcrm.org. It'll say, join a Kickstart. What is a Kickstart? Every day, Alicia Silverstone or some other Hollywood celebrity or an athlete will send you an email with menus, recipes, cooking videos, tips for how to eat out, tips for how to travel for free. And there's a message board, so if you've got a question or you want to submit a comment, you can do it. It doesn't cost anything. It starts every month anew, so we're just about to start a new one. And let me encourage you to give this a shot. pcrm.org. Go there, and I promise I will not spam you. Just put in your email address. Oh, by the way, do we have a sign-in sheet if anybody wants to leave us your address? Why don't we distribute that, or maybe you already have. We'd be more than happy to send you alerts for things that are coming up all totally free. So we have a free app, 21-Day Kickstart. And the Kickstart is in English, Spanish, Mandarin, and one for people from India. It's English words, but Indian food. We also have a Japanese program. Okay? So have at it. You're going to enjoy it. We have a lot of books. These are mine, but there are many, many others that are really good. If you know somebody with diabetes, please encourage them to look at that. If you have somebody who has Alzheimer's in their family, yes, Alzheimer's disease is related to food. And that blew me away when I learned that, and so that's why I wrote this book. Or check them out from the library or whatever. There's really important information in there. We have classes in Washington. If you have friends up in our neck of the woods, they're free. Every week we have a diabetes class and a weight control class. Give us a call. We'd love to include you. All right? So we're starting a medical center for doctors who don't know too much about nutrition. We are setting up a center in Washington, D.C., where we will use medications and whatever we need, but everybody who comes in, we're going to look at what they're eating because that's the biggest influence on their health. All right? All right, the last thing that I just want to say is I hope you found this information useful. And yet the people who need this information the most are not in this room. They're 8 years old, and they're in school. And in school, it's pizza day, or it's chicken nuggets. And they think that is a totally normal way of eating. And when they're on their way home, they stop at the convenience store, and they get sodas and candy and junk. And their busy parents give them pizza again at night, and that's the way they eat. And 1 in every 3 is going to be overweight before they get their high school diploma. Virtually all of them have the beginnings of heart disease before they graduate from high school. They're not aware of it, but if I look in their arteries, I will see it. 1/3 of the girls will get cancer at some point in their lifetime, and half the boys. 1/3 of them will get diabetes at some point in their life, and they will all think this is normal. When they turn on the television, half the commercials are for snack foods. The other half of the commercials are for medications to undo the effects of all the foods that they are eating. There are erectile dysfunction aids. They think that a Viagra is a perfectly normal thing for a man to take. It is a disease state caused largely by diet. If you want, I'll give you my erectile dysfunction lecture. But the whole point is kids are growing up in an unprecedented world. If we can turn things around and put healthy foods in front of these kids, they're not going to live forever. But they will live well for as long as they're around. At least that is our goal. So what do? How do we deal with this? My generation dealt with smoking. We kind of arm wrestled, should we ban smoking from the college? Should we ban smoking from the hospital? I don't know. We thought about it. And after a few years, we said, okay, we're going to do it. And we banned smoking. And then we just thought, why didn't we do this earlier? Now this generation, is this not true? We're dealing with food. We know we're not eating in a really good way. But do I want to change? Don't I want to change? I don't know. The answer is yes, because not only is it healthy, but it's fun. And it makes you look at the world in a completely different way. So what I encourage you to do is give it a try, see what you think, and then when you discover foods you like and books you like and DVDs and shows and restaurants that have cool things or products at the store, make some noise, share it with other people, because you never know what's going to save their life or give them a key that was going to really help them along the way. Does this make sense? So let me encourage you, give it a try, see what you think, make some noise. Thanks a lot, everybody.